Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. We're taking a quick look here at the crypto market overview. Simply put, Fear and Greed Index and Altcoin Season Index, kind of what those mean for us. Altcoins are still in very good shape, even though we are seeing a corrective pattern here, but we're maintaining above a specific level. So we're going to discuss that, a new CME futures gap here almost fully filled, and obviously the larger time frame divergence. So be sure to stick around. We got an important one here today. Let's take a look. All right, folks, let's go ahead and start off here with some polls here, kind of keep it light for the moment because I know the market's kind of a little crazy right now. But majority of you are feeling that we are looking at the bottom being in and also we're going to go lower. Slightly larger percentage of people are bearish here today on crypto Twitter. When we look at crypto YouTube, it's a break even here essentially. Everyone feels the bottom's in, but they also feel that we're going to go lower. So it's generally construed as a who knows what's going to happen kind of situation here. And that is very common in the industry when we have these significant corrections into these key level supports. So we're going to talk about that. We are at a 0.618 fib level here for Bitcoin. That's more of a macro structure. So looking at the market overview to kind of get things started, to preface and to keep things simple, we still haven't shifted to a fear market yet. I think we're going to need to hit that lower 100K range in order to see that happen, and altcoins are really going to have to take a nosedive. But for the most part, Fear and Greed Index is still in good shape. People aren't running for the hills just yet, which I think is smart because, again, selling the dip isn't always the best consideration. But once more, is it well advised to buy the dip here? We're going to find out and obviously double check that. But when we look at CryptoNet ETF inflow or outflow, essentially, we are seeing there's less inflow than obviously the day before. So this is a bit of a lag, so keep that in mind. But the big picture here is that the inflow into Ethereum is slowing down and it's increasing more so on the Bitcoin side. And it's no surprise Bitcoin dominance is on the way up. Okay, so that's kind of is what it is. What it isn't, if that makes sense, the double negative is a crypto season, altcoin season index here. This is good. This is actually very positive. I know it seems crazy and weird that the markets are pulling back and we're seeing the crypto altcoin market cap still remaining in a good position. But for the most part, this implies that with us being up at that $1.5 trillion market cap for altcoins, that we're still in good shape. Okay, so what that basically implies is that you should be careful with obviously the coins you're investing in because not all coins are created equally. But once more, if we take a look at the top 100 coins, essentially, majority of them are outperforming Bitcoin, and that's generally a good sign of strength in the altcoin market, which is what we look for ultimately to kind of consider early indications of altcoin season and all that. Ethereum maintaining its range fairly well. It actually hasn't pulled back quite as hard as other altcoins. Leads me to believe we're still in pretty decent shape. So once more, that's kind of what we're looking at there. If we do quickly look here, we can see stablecoin. The amount of money flowing into stablecoin is quite high, and obviously altcoins is low. So that's standard. Basically tells us that market makers or whales, institutional traders, they have money set in reserves essentially, ready to fire once we hit our bottom. Okay. So kind of getting that loading scenario here. We take a look at Bitcoin dominance. This is also good. We're going sideways, and generally means when you see sideways Bitcoin dominance price action, it essentially tells us that most coins are going to be going sideways as well, or at least moving with Bitcoin itself. Okay, so this is actually a very good sign. Ultimately, in the big picture here, we don't have a significant divergence there. While Bitcoin dominance is slightly increasing in the overall sense, it's most altcoins are responding similarly to it. Okay, and to me that's always a positive. So ultimately, that's what we're looking at there. Quickly to note, when we take a look at true retail longs, essentially, we can see longs slightly larger than shorts in the market for the moment. We can see margins are increasing too as the price goes down, so more longs are being bought. We can also recognize that retail is trading more, but specifically institutional traders are very heavy right now. Okay, and that's standard for a Monday through Friday. So it leads me to believe that we are getting closer to our tentative bottom. Taking a look here though at the open interest ranges, we want to recognize that there's a ton of open interest above. This doesn't really represent how much open interest is below us because we need a little bit of time to see that develop. But for the most part, key level resistances is 114,000 and 115,000. Those are kind of the two immediate upper resistance ranges for us. When we look at liquidation delta, we can recognize here that we're at 14 billion. Let me refresh this really quick. We are, maintaining about 14 billion in short liquidation. That tells us we have way more people taking shorts than taking longs. That concerns me. When you start to see that overextension, oftentimes you'll see a reversal because market makers are going to be buying these dips. It's potential. I'm not proposing we're going to see a massive increase here today, but I can tell you that all this liquidation here, at least majority of it having been swept to the downside, leads me to believe we're getting close to our bottom. We have a little bit left liquidation at that 1075K range. Okay, so we might see that one more candle wick down before we actually hit our true bottom. But at this point here, from a macro perspective, we zoom out a little bit, just kind of looking at the daily from our most recent low to our most recent high. This is more so just macro fib levels. We're right there at our 0.618 fib, essentially an area of previous consolidation before the price legged up. Okay, so once more at this point, previous areas of consolidation basically imply that we should see some support here in this area. So that's kind of where we're at there. I'm not proposing we're just going to see the price shoot straight up from here, but I can tell you that selling pressure to the downside, it should start to decrease. Another thing to recognize too, and I forgot to mention this is what's kind of odd about the situation here, is that US core PCE index, basically the price index year over year, that's essentially at 2.9%. And it was previously at 2.8%. That's pretty close to our forecast. So that really isn't a big enough catalyst here, I feel, to continue the price action lower. We could very well be seeing that, buy the rumor, sell the news thing, where the price was coming up in light of that, and that had cause this to happen. But no matter how you look at it, it shouldn't cause a continuation. I don't think we're going to see that precipitation lower. Once more, most of the metrics we're going to be looking at here are going to be fully bearish. But the backend data is kind of telling us a different story. So it really depends on how you want to think about it or look at it. I'll save you some time. We looked at this daily time frame yesterday. I mentioned definitely fully bearish in the overall sense. And there's not really a lot here telling us we're just going to instantly recover. So truth is not looking great there in that sense. And the 4 hour obviously is going to look pretty poor as well. But we're starting to see an overextension leading into our key level support. Furthermore as well, we're also getting close to 30 on the RSI here. And usually you see a pivot or a bounce when that starts to happen, especially when money flow index comes lower. So generally speaking, we're starting to hit our tentative bottom, but once more, it's very early to tell. And today being a Friday, I don't really love kind of seeing this price action leading into a weekend. Even though it seems very tempting to want to short this weekend, the concept is that you want to kind of wait and see how the price action responds first before doing that. In other words, wait until Saturday actually happens before you consider trading, because lately we've seen these trends on Saturday where the price action will continue in that 24-hour period, and then on Sunday it reverses itself. So lately we have been seeing green Saturdays and then red Sundays, or the inverse, red Saturday, and then a green Sunday. So to keep that in mind, I think that's something worth waiting for. That's where we're at for Bitcoin. It's an interesting one, yes, but I don't think the sky is falling per se, but we're at this weird little indecision, or this transition rather. And a lot of times trading transitions can be very tumultuous. So it's best to generally avoid trading unless you're like scalping and you're trying to catch these little pumps and dumps. All right, so let's look at the backend data here for ETH and just quickly recognize 4,300, 4,400, and 4,500 are those key levels here for either support or, in this case, potentially resistance now. So 4,300 is that last line of defense here. And if we invalidate below that level, we could very well see that $4,100 liquidation range swept here. Okay, short liquidation delta is at 20 billion. This is very, very overextended for this coin. In fact, we don't see Ethereum have this kind of delta very often, as far as this extreme in either upwards or downwards directions. So I don't really like seeing that here and considering a short, because I feel like if you're going to short right now, you're shorting the bottom. And ETH has provided a lot of support in its current range based on the simple fact that most altcoins are basically 2x to the downside with Bitcoin. And right now we're seeing a 1-to-1 pairing with Ethereum. So whatever Bitcoin does, Ethereum will do too. Just know in the recent past here, with all the ETF net inflow, we are seeing a majority of, we're seeing Ethereum being a very strong recovery coin. In other words, it recovers very fast and it's a very good coin to consider trading, right? So in that sense, that's kind of where we're at there. The overall circumstance, definitely looking pretty good here for Ethereum, but not going to lie to you here, the macro is shifting bearish. We are under the 20-day SMA, and obviously we're testing that level of support at 50 in the RSI. These are generally construed as bullish convergences, of course, but we have to see how they respond first. So if we close below 4,300, it may be an indication we're going to go lower. Closing above, I think, would show us some strength here, of course, but it is going to require Bitcoin to stop knee jerking, right? It keeps wanting to go up and then pulls right back. So that's kind of where we're at there. Now, some areas of interest here once more: 43, 43.30 is that current level. That was a previous local high, potentially working as a new low. And we also have 42.50 as that bottom area there. There's some liquidation in that range and also one of those fib levels too. But there's no doubt that we have shifted bearish here. We lost our ascending trend line. And in all reality at this point here, it would be just as high of a risk to take a long as it would to take a short. And usually you want to avoid trading in that if that is the case. The one thing I do like here is that money flow index is pulling back super hard. We're seeing that overextension plus liquidation short delta being too high. I think the likelihood of a short squeeze is quite high now because of these overextending factors here. But once more, trading overextensions in crypto can be very, very challenging. So at this point, we can see an 8 on TD sequential. We are massively overextended and recovery would make perfect sense. So I'm still leaning a little bit more towards the price moving up than down at this point, but just know taking a trade with ETH right now in either direction is pretty risky. Take a look here at Solana. Let's double check this here. This is a coin that I was very interested in taking long in the 210 range. In fact, I actually averaged into my position, or our position rather, in the 206 range now after getting filled with that previous pullback. So we're going to see if this is worth holding on to and kind of where we're at in the overall sense. Now, if we take a look here, we can see with open interest, there is a lot of open interest in the 200 to 205 range, right? Same thing could be said about 210 to 215. So expecting this coin to shoot to the moon is, I think, very irrational, but it has more propensity than other coins to do so because we are still maintaining a positive liquidation long delta, basically implying more longs and shorts are in the market. And if we take a look at our liquidation ranges here, we can see 204 is that next area of concentration outside of 200. So we may actually see that happen. In fact, let's actually refresh this because I'm sure that that lower level has been hit. So the 204 actually has been swept and we're looking at 200 as the next potential candidate there. So if Bitcoin were to continue to go sideways and down, you bet your butt 200 is going to be hit next year for Solana. But I'm willing to speculate we're going to see a significant bounce there because that's a psychological support level for this coin. We've also got our key fib level here as well as this 0.618 and the point of control at 204. So hypothetically, we hold this 203 to 204 range today, we'll see a likely recovery over the weekend, okay? But that's kind of where we're at there, but no matter how you look at it in the overall sense, the daily time frame on this coin is still bullish, even though it's kind of weird to say. We're still maintaining above a lot of moving averages, so corrective day to day is not surprising. What we want to do is make sure again we close over 203 or higher, because if we do not do that, we'd have a bearish engulfing candle, and what that would tell us isn't because it's just like a wonderful candle that sounds cool because you say bearish engulfing. The reason why bearish engulfing candles are relevant is because they actually tell you in this 24-hour period that the bears have controlled the previous time frame, trading time frame. In other words, this 24 hours we're seeing more bears than bulls. That's usually a trend reversal tool. So we're going to pay attention to that and see if that happens. That could invalidate any potential long, but for the most part the daily time frame hasn't shifted bearish by any stretch, and the 4-hour time frame we're still over the 50-day SMA. There's still a lot of reasons here as to why Solana is pretty strong. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards the price continuing higher with a potential pivot off this 203 range, pending Bitcoin doesn't run towards anything lower than 107,000. So that's kind of where we're at there. Moving on to SUI, let's take a double check here with this guy. I've been bearish on SUI, and in fact, I missed my entry at 350. It would hit like 349 yesterday. So annoying, I never got that alert to trigger. But if we look here, we can see our point of control, basically open interest, is 350. That's that resistance range. And we can see as well, liquidation short delta is high, and majority liquidation has been swept. Let's go ahead and double check and refresh this and see, yeah, that local area, that local chunk of 330 is gone. We do have a little bit left between 310 and 320. But I do think we're going to start seeing a bottom here soon with SUI. I don't foresee 280 unless Bitcoin runs to 100K. So really a lot of this depends on Bitcoin, but the truth is we've broken below our local low here, our previous week candle close low. And then we can also recognize too that at this point there's nothing but bearish divergences in all time frames. So the concept here, if you're going to consider shorting, is to pay close attention to it, because taking a short at this level, even though it's statistically more favorable and it's something that you're supposed to honestly do when you see a bearish backtest of that trend line, the overall sense is that we are overextended. If Bitcoin were to recover, SUI is a really good coin to consider taking along with, just based on the fact that it's massively overextended and it's ready. It's been in the doghouse for quite a while. We're starting to see money flow index increasing too, telling us these dips are being bought. So my personal thought here is that SUI should recover and bottom out soon. I definitely don't foresee anything under $3 just yet, but obviously if Bitcoin continues to struggle, this coin will too. It's been 2x to the downside. So at this point, I'm not recommending you short or take along with this coin. It's probably best to avoid altogether. If we start seeing some bottoming out over the weekend from Bitcoin, then it may be advantageous to consider a long at that point. Taking a look here at XRP, the last one we're just going to cover here today is the overall sense here is that there's a tremendous amount of open interest above. There's a little bit accumulating down below at 280. We talked about this previously. 280 is a support level for it. So overall, at this point, with us having a short liquidation delta kind of rivaling our previous dip, the likelihood of a recovery here soon is high. But once more, taking along into this kind of selling pressure is difficult too. It's hard to really recommend doing so. So I'd never generally recommend buying the dips or trying to trying to catch a falling knife, so to speak. As you can tell, if you've traded any kind of coin that's pulling back, it can definitely keep going, right? There's a lot of liquidation between 280 and 270. So the super smart play would be wait till the 270 range, at least the low 270s. But that may not happen too. So honestly, when the backend data doesn't tell us too much, we are approaching a type of double bottom. This is very ugly, but we are starting to see this secondary level here of 280 hit a second time. So that could incentivize the price to recover and bounce from here. We are also seeing an overextension here where we're at 30 on the RSI, or getting close, and we're also getting close to 20 on the money flow index. It's super common if the price hits 30 on the RSI and the money flow index hits 20 for the price to recover, at least for a short-term relief rally. So once more, it depends on the kind of trader you are. If you're a long-term trader and you're expecting this coin to go to 500, buy wherever you want. But the truth is, unless you're scalping, you probably want to avoid trading this coin too, because it's just kind of it's a mess right now. Okay, so I would probably find better coins to trade, or just in general consider consider hanging out and not trading for a little while. That's okay too. There's nothing wrong with waiting on the sidelines. I typically like to do that myself when things get kind of crazy like this, because shorting what feels like the bottom is a bad idea in most cases, and obviously trying to take a long in the blind is difficult too. So that's kind of where we're at there. Not much else to really analyze here. The daily time frame for XRP is fairly bearish if you saw my analysis from yesterday. So that's kind of where we're at. I hope this was helpful. Sorry it's not what you wanted to hear in most cases, but I'm always going to shoot you straight and tell you how it is, not how it should be, right? I mean, honestly, it should be better, but that's a conversation for another day. Anyways, I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day. Thanks again for your time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care of yourself out there. Bye-bye.